Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast. This is episode 252. My name is Aaron, and with me, as always, the other members of the Who Dat Jedi Council, Dave and Fredo. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Happy Chewbacca's week. Parades kind of we're going to be starting them now because we got Chewbacca's this week, then Crew de Vue the week after that, and then maybe we get a little bit of a breather, and then it's off and running. Right? And so, yay! And I have to apologize for this first half of this podcast. We got a new dog in our household this past weekend, and my wife is not here, so that's what you're hearing in the background are chewing on dog toys. So I apologize, but hey.
More importantly, what's her name?
Well, her name, everybody, is Clea. And yes, I've actually, it's one of those, if you know, you know, right? And you're listening to a Star Wars podcast, so you should probably know. I just dug that name. And I looked at her and I was like, she looks like a Clea. She's a great Pyrenees mix. So, yeah. I hope she doesn't kill me in my sleep or anything, which the other Clea probably would. So, but anyway.
No, you're on her team.
This is true.
Yeah.
Pardon my coughing there. Yeah.
She might murder anyone who comes to the front door.
Well, so far we don't like other people that aren't our family walking in front of our house. So,
Yes.
But I think there's also a little bit of teaching going on from the other dogs of like, hey, we bark at that brown truck and that white truck with the colorful lettering. We bark at that too. They're invading the house. Go. So yeah, it's been fun. Are you guys prepped for the cold? Because that's the other big news for the New Orleans area is that it's going to get cold. I mean, the whole country is going to be getting hit with a stupid snow and ice event. And luckily, so far, knock on wood, I won't because my dogs will go nuts. But knock on wood, we are below the ice line. So, but Chewbacca's, it looks like that day it's going to be a high of 61 and a low of 28, which means that we're probably going to hit the high around 10 a.m. and it's just going to start declining. So, if it's
I think really it's more the rain.
if it's not raining, I can
Right.
deal with the parade. Yeah.
And that's my point. It's like as long as it's dry and cold, cool. We just bundle up, we get out there, it's fun.
All right.
It's when it's cold and wet, that's when it's a no-go.
All right, so we got to have a little bit of Mythbusters here because I heard this when I was on this weekend. I was watching the Rams Bears game, and they said it was played in Chicago, and they said that the Rams players were putting cayenne pepper in their shoes to keep their feet warm. And so me and a guy, I was at the Bulldog, and me and a guy were like, if that works, that's a Mardi Gras hack. I will ruin some socks. I don't care. If I keep my feet warm, everything else is fine. But when my feet are cold, it sucks. And so I texted my sister about this and said, "Did you hear this?" And she's an athletic trainer. And she said, well, it shares an ingredient that's in Icy Hot. So we might have to, if Saturday is chilly, I might make chili in my shoes and just put some cayenne pepper in my shoes and see if that actually works. What do you think?
I think you're from the Midwest and you should tough it out.
And I'm just thinking, hey, you do the research and get back to us.
I've spent my time on cement steps in Memorial Stadium when it's 20 below zero. My Midwest card went out the window 6 months after I moved here. I'm a whiny little baby now. So, anyway. But cayenne pepper let us know if you see us on the street corner or online wherever we are. If you think that the cayenne pepper in the shoes would work, like I said, I will give it a go. I've got some old shoes that I can see if this is a thing.
It calls to mind Southerners panicking every time the temperature drops below 40. I mean, that's the visual in my mind. The cars skidding everywhere, even though there's no ice on the road, and
Well, I
just
mean, that's a thing. I mean, you grew up in Kansas. I grew up in Nebraska. We that So you had a year of a learner's permit, and part of that year you were driving in snow and ice, and
oh yeah.
your mom and dad. It's like you were taught how to turn into a skid. I remember my dad, taking me basically into a parking lot and saying, "Okay, now jam on the brakes." It's like that's part of what we do down here. That's not part of what you do. I think part of their driver's ed training is like it's raining, turn on your hazards and drive 10 miles an hour on the interstate. With all due respect, um,
For the
Right.
record, don't do that. Nobody do that, please.
um, but anyway, yeah. So no, that was like I said, Fredo. What was it? You learned to drive down here. So I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, you had nice weather to drive in all the time, or did they take you out in a monsoon?
No, you learned the hard way about, hydroplaning, because look, particularly down here, you can expect rain in the springtime, in the summertime, in the fall, and our
Well,
streets flood. So what you learn mighty quick is you go slow so you don't create push awake into people's
that's
homes.
fair, and you
But
also
what
learn how to play puddle or pothole. How to
exactly,
assess the
exactly.
situation. Yeah. So I get it.
So those are really the big threats that you have to worry about. It's what the heck is going to happen if and when
Well,
you do get into a pothole situation, or you don't know what's down the street.
Dave,
Sometimes when you don't know there might be an alligator down the street of you.
it's less the driving, Dave, that freaks me out. Is more of the we have so many power lines above ground. In Nebraska, the power lines were all for the most part below ground. It's like it's so very seldom did we have an ice storm that knocked out. Or have a winter storm that would knock out power. But here, like you said, you get a little bit of freezing rain and it hangs on the line. Yeah. So,
Yeah. The infrastructure is just different too. Like you talk about freezing pipes, right? That's
yeah.
a big worry down here because we have so many external pipes that aren't insulated,
Right.
and it's just because there's no need, so people don't do it. But then when you get a freeze, it's a
Yeah.
problem.
Well, and to be fair, part of the difference is you can in much of the rest of the country bury stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Your
Mhm.
soil composition much stronger, much sturdier. It can withstand you
Well, and
putting stuff
it's
underneath. You try to bury anything in our soil, the whole neighborhood might go down with it.
it's in the ground, and and it's also in your basement, and your basement
Mm.
is heated, and so, yeah. Anyway, everybody be safe. But it's looks like it's maybe only going to be really really cold for a short amount of time here. So, but enough to, like I said, make us whiny. I just hope that by the time the parades get kicking, that weather's better. I hope Chewbacca's has good weather for people to be downtown and to check that parade out. 'Cause that's fun.
And really, that's really my big concern. We get because the problem you run into, we've had such a proliferation of parades over the last decade or so. There really is no room for if there's a bad weather day to move everything to another day. It just doesn't exist. If you think about next weekend, there's Crew M on Friday, Crew de Vue on Saturday. You get, I forget there's something else going on Sunday. So it's like if Chewbacca's can't roll on their day, they're pretty much host for the year,
Yeah.
and which sucks for them. I mean, and particularly when you consider the dynamics of Chewbacca's, where it's handcrafted throws, handcrafted costumes, handcrafted floats. These are not the big parade floats that are built to withstand, your mild rain or whatever. This stuff will be uncomfortable. Put it this way: if there's thunder and lightning, the pole dancing Twi'leks are not going to be coming out because that's just begging for disaster.
It sounds like a punk band, the pole dancing Twi'leks. Anyway, all
But it's
right.
out there.
Well, tonight, what we're going to be talking about, one of the things had on our docket for last week, and we're a little bit behind the game here, but we're going to talk about Stranger Things. Not really too in depth, more of just kind of how it was handled, I think. Just kind of our
Mhm.
thoughts on this final season, and then just how I think, wherever the conversation leads us. We're having an
Yeah.
interesting conversation. in our when you were all at my house a couple weeks ago. Um, and we also have a new segment, which is Dave's "Get Off My Lawn" moment. Um, don't you have a rant for us, right?
I do if we have time for it.
I'm here for it, man. So,
All
um,
right.
and we also have a little bit of news. So, do you want to do your rant after the news or before the news? Let's do it. Let's do it after the news.
Okay.
That's fine. Or
Yep.
whatever you want to do. I don't care if you just start yelling at me during trivia. That's fine too. You can do that. Um, make it interesting wherever you want to pop in. But we will start with some trivia. Let's get our brains wrapped around some Star Wars stuff. Oh, and yeah, well, I guess we'll talk about that in the news bit. But the Maul trailer dropped today, so so it's interesting. All right, well, here we go. First question to Fredo: whose last words are? Sorry, that sounds like the Princess Bride right now. That is, her final words were.
No, that's
Monty
Monty Python.
Python.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm singing.
Ah.
No, it was love her. It was Princess Bride line.
Yeah, no, but we were talking about
yeah,
Monty
I
Python.
know. So maybe he
Ah.
was dictating. Yeah. Hi, Britt. Um, all right, no more chewing of bones behind us now. The dogs are okay. So whose last words are "There is another Skywalker"? Dramatic pause. Whose last words are "There is another Skywalker"?
Sure. Dramatic pause. Dramatic pause. Jedi Master Yoda.
And last name, please.
The man. Last
No,
name's
it's
Man.
his last name is Lehihu.
I thought it was Yoda Man.
No, Yoda Lehihu. Anyway, all right. Dave, to you.
Dad jokes for days.
What creature causes C-3PO to shriek, "Go away, beastly little thing! Shoo, shoo!" This is like, this is like, I don't know.
Spring training. Meatballs down the middle.
No, I'm like, it's a like theater moment for Aaron here. I'm doing the lines. What creature causes C-3PO to shriek, "Go away, beastly little thing! Shoo, shoo!"
A Minoc.
It is a Minoc.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite C-3PO moments, actually. All right, to me, I get a softball as well. Who does Obi-Wan describe as our only hope? Who does Obi-Wan describe as our only hope? That would be Luke Skywalker. Yes, it is. Softballs tonight, man.
Oh yeah.
I saw a
Yes,
thing. Okay, so let me toss this one to you. It's like if you had to pick one Star Wars movie and start reciting all the lines, which one do you think you could get furthest in?
Probably A New Hope.
A New Hope for me. That'd be interesting. I'd like to take that challenge sometime.
And I'm just saying that more than anything because it's the one that's got the least amount of dialogue. It's way more actiony than the other ones. I mean, you start Empire and you start going forward. There's a ton more
Well, and I
talking.
used to sit there with the recording of it, the audio recording of the movie that it was on records, and I would just listen to that every day. So it's kind of cheating. But Dave,
Yeah, you're probably right. I just think just A New Hope, the dialogue's fairly sparse, so that gives you a fighting chance. I think at some point though, you're gonna flub something up. So
did you hear that? They've shut down the main reactor. We'll be destroyed for sure. This is madness. We won't start now. All right. News. Fredo, what's going on in the world?
Well, let's start with the big one from today. Yes, we got, I mean, first of all, it's announced that it was going to happen today, but we got our first trailer for Maul Shadow Lord. And as well as we got the trailer, we got informed that the series will debut April 6th, and we'll get 2 episodes. First 2 episodes April 6th, and then every subsequent week, 2 more episodes will drop.
How many episodes?
So, hold on a second. I believe it's like 10, 12. Let me confirm that. While you talk about what
All
your
right.
initial
Well,
thoughts were.
I think I said to you guys, I was like, it was a fun trailer just because it was like, oh, cool. It was Maul, but nothing didn't really tell us anything. But I didn't sit there and analyze every frame, so I have to go listen to my other Star Wars podcast now. The people who, get paid to sit there and analyze every frame of it. But to me, it's just like, okay, this looks nifty, and I'm excited for another Star Wars thing. And you know, I
Uh,
guess if what I was what I was hoping was that would there be some clues that yes, we're going to get in some Crimson Dawn stuff. There was a Twilight Jedi. I suppose that's interesting. Who's on the run? This is obviously post Order 66, but it was nifty. So Dave,
Before Dave goes, just real quick. So yes, it'd be 10 episodes. First two drop April 6th. Last two will drop May the 4th.
all right.
So go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think at least some of the reporting that I've seen on this is that the George Lucas's original treatment for the sequel trilogy included Maul's apprentice featuring prominently, and she was a Twilight.
Oh,
Mm.
all right.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, so this is a bit of a continuation off that idea, I believe. We'll see. Uh, I mean, I liked the trailer. I really enjoyed it, and I think when I comment, we were talking about the text thread earlier, and like my comment was, "Oh my gosh, it's good to hear Sam reading dialogue again," because I could just hear him perform Maul and read the phone book, and he
Yeah.
would make the phone book compelling. So, like, that's yeah, I'm all on board. Welcome back, Sam, to this character. I can't wait to hear you just read the phone book to me.
Yeah, it is funny. Before Fredo, you give your 2 cents. It is funny. Just on that note, it's like, I mean, Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan to me, but really, you know, now the guy's name just escaped me. The James Arnold Taylor. I mean, he's done more to form the Obi-Wan character than anybody who's played it, Ewan McGregor included. And Sam Witwer has taken, a kind of a throwaway character and made him like incredibly interesting and give him a bunch of life. So I don't know, Fredo, what do you think of the trailer?
Yeah, off the top, I thought it's interesting. I think um, it's kind of hitting the notes that you wanted to hit. It's about Maul in the time of the Empire. Uh, I guess the one question that I do have, and it's something that I haven't heard answered since, is the last time before season seven, the last time we have seen Maul was when Palpatine killed his brother and was torturing him. And yet now we are supposed to expect to think
Oh,
that
hold on. Last time we saw Maul was when?
In Clone
Yeah, I
Wars,
know, but he was in season 7.
that's what I mean. Before season seven,
Okay.
we had seen Palpatine torturing him after he killed Savage.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
And now we got word about how the Emperor's hunting down Maul again. And I'm like, did Palpatine let him live? How did that happen? That is the one question I have. And it's the kind of
No,
simple thing that
there is a comic book that I mean, well, I think Dooku had him captured, and then the Mandalorians because Vanessa Marshall is going to be voicing the Mandalorian last name Rook Rook. Um, but anyway, she and the other dude. Anyway, they rescue Maul. So
okay.
Dooku had there is a comic book that talks
Okay,
about that,
because
I
that's
believe.
so yeah, because that remember we go from that moment in season five to season seven, and there, he's in the sewers of Mandalore trying to lead the Mandalorians into battle or whatever, and trying to corrupt Anakin. Overall, though, I enjoyed it. I think Sam Witwer loves this character. I think the writers love this character. As always, the interesting aspect is telling a story with the bad guy as the protagonist can be a double-edged sword, and we can just look at the Acolyte to see how that can go not well for the audience. Like everybody says they want to see more of the bad guy or the villain, but when they get more of the villain, they go, well, I don't like this. So it's got to be interesting what how they strike the balance between Maul. I mean, the trailer shows you we get scenes from the Pikes. You get some TK stormtroopers, so this is the same time as the Bad Batch. You can see Jedi who are on the run. So where does Maul fit in all this? That's where it gets interesting.
Did the trailer tell you guys anything, or did I totally miss it, or was it again just kind of a, oh, this is neat? Did you glean anything from it? Like, can you make any, like, oh, this is where we're going? I guess I didn't, and it's not a criticism of the trailer. I'm just saying it's kind of a hype trailer, really. It's like, hey
Mm-hmm.
kids, we got new Star Wars coming, and that's about it. Uh, Maybe that's all
No,
it
and
needs to
it,
be. So
and it's so yeah, exactly. Look, if you are a fan of Star Wars animation, you're gonna watch this because you grew up with Clone Wars, grew up with Rebels. The idea of getting more Maul is just like more candy for you. So
I guess
you're
that's
gonna
that's
watch
a good,
this.
that is something I thought about, and we don't need to belabor all this that if
Mm.
you don't want to. But um, is this geared pretty much just towards us? Because I don't think the people who just kind of watch, the Mandalorian are gonna go, oh, this looks like something I want to watch. Because again, the trailer didn't tell you. You have to know who Maul is. You have to know kind of where we're at. You you have to have a little bit of knowledge
Knowledge.
coming in to make this, to have this trailer get get you excited about what the show's going to be. If I didn't know anything about anything except that I like the Mandalorian, oh, and here's a new Star Wars thing that's coming out, I don't know. I might be like, maybe not. You know,
He's got a really interesting character design. You got the double-bladed lightsaber, the horns and the red and the black on the face and the whole thing. Like he's an interesting looking guy, right? So I think on that level alone, you're gonna have people that might think, well, this might be pretty cool. It looks cool. I may check it out, even though I know nothing about the character. I didn't watch any of the other stuff that he's in. I also would. I'm curious to know if they're going to anticipate any of that and try to offer an introduction of sorts, um, where the series has an actual beginning, and it's not just where last we picked off, And
yeah.
I feel like that would be a bit of a disservice. I feel like let's just tell this story on its own terms, give this story a beginning, middle, and end, and don't just make it into, a Clone Wars spinoff. I mean, like that would be kind of what I would hope for. But I don't. To be perfectly honest, I don't have those high of expectations here. They could just go Clone Wars spinoff, and I would make do with that because I would be aware that they have that option. So
Well, the good thing is that they didn't do like they did with the Bad Batch, where it was, you had the literally had the Clone Wars logo morph into the Bad Batch logo, so they
yeah.
knew that's exactly what they were doing that last time. So maybe this is just going to be, you know, yeah, just starts off with Maul wherever he is. My hope for the, like I said, I hope there's some Crimson Dawn stuff, and I hope that we find out how he got on Malachor when we see him in Rebels. Those are
we won't get that far because Solo enters in between the setting of this series and the Malachor stuff.
well, you could still get to Malachor by the end of this series. It's not like it's 10 days. Who knows how long it stretches. But
I mean, yeah, there could be a time leap, because again, like chronologically, it's occurring before Solo. So the question is like you said, like if forward 5 years or whatever, um, could do something like that. But I don't think we're going to take it that far. And I think that Filoni knows. Well, I give Filoni credit for this, but I think Lucasfilm at large knows that this is a popular character and people are intrigued by him. And every time they try to walk away from him, they think, well, maybe we should go back to this guy.
So
So
maybe there's a Maul Shadow Lord season 2 in the
yeah,
backs of their heads. All right, well,
or a movie,
I will
or
still remain
yeah,
hopeful. So, yeah.
yeah.
Ultimately, I mean, I think more than anything, I want it to be something that's unique and different, even from the Clone Wars Rebels Bad Batch thing. Maul's a whole different character from any of the other ones, and you have somebody who captures his essence well, and Sam Witwer lean into that and give us stuff that's completely away from all that without it feeling like, okay, we got to be all mean about it. So, okay, I'll move on right quick to the easier bit of news. So, it was revealed earlier this week that Oga's Cantina out in Batu West, this is a follow up from last week. We know that Batu West is going through some retheming ahead of May. And one of those is apparently if you're planning to go to Olga's Cantina out in Disneyland, congratulations, you can't right now for the next few weeks. According to what's been revealed, timeline update to Galaxy's Edge, we'll have half the land set during the original trilogy, the other half still set during the sequel trilogy, which will affect the backstory of Olga's Cantina, although Olga is still the proprietor and DJR3X will still be spinning tunes. So they're going to make aesthetic changes throughout the cantina and perform, standard maintenance in the bar, whatever. But they might incorporate more original trilogy music, make up, we get the appearances of Vader, Luke, and so forth. And apparently, all these changes are going to go into effect by April 29, about less than a month from Mandalorian and Grogu dropping in theaters.
You know what I would love to see, and I've never, I don't think I've ever, I don't know if I've ever heard of it happening. Even I would love to see some uh, original trilogy stormtroopers every now and again coming into the cantina, and just because I mean the stormtroopers never came in to Oga's, at least that I ever
Mm.
heard of or saw. I think that would be kind of a cool, like very much like in A New Hope. It's like just walking around,
Questioning the bartenders,
just
walking around.
yeah, just checking things out. Yeah, I think it'd be awesome. So yeah, I,
If you have the space to spread out and put your leg up and have your blaster pointed at them underneath the table, you would. But there's no way you can
oh,
do that at
I
Oga's
don't know how
Canteen.
much. It'd be interesting. I don't know how much they would need to do because that cantina felt kind of like timeline agnostic. I mean, Oga's did.
Mm.
So I mean, I could see them probably having to get in, like you said, and fixing DJ Rex's you know playlist and stuff like that, and testing the sound system and everything. I don't know how much they would change aesthetically though. So
They'll change from Jets to Jizz.
moving right along.
So moving right along, unless Dave wants to comment on any of that. No, and we move
No,
right
I
along.
won't. Yeah, I'm good.
You're agnostic on the whole thing. That's probably for the best. Uh, Deadline did an interview last week with Kathleen Kennedy, called it her exit interview from Lucasfilm. And she kind of goes over her career, her goals, very much stating she is not retiring. She is simply stepping down from her role to go back to being just a movie producer, which is what her great passion has been for most of her career. I bring it up because there is a section where they start asking her about the making of Star Wars movies. So I'll bring up a couple of quotes right quick. First of all, they start Deadline asks her about uh, making movies and maybe reaching out to people like Ryan Coogler or Christopher Nolan, and she goes, talked about reaching out to Tony Gilroy, and she says, first of all, she goes, not everybody's going to go, oh yeah, great, I'm going to drop everything and spend the next 3 to 5 years trying to figure this out. And Deadline asks her, is that how many years on average? And she goes, 3 to 5 from the start you start developing and then what's involved in concept work and creation. So mean, it kind of gives you a good frame of reference as to why some of these projects have necessarily not come to the forefront because it takes a lot to get them off the ground. Then Deadline asks the follow up question. Let's get to what the fans are eager to know. The progress on films and series by filmmakers who've committed to putting in that 3 to 5 years. Rian Johnson, James Mangold, Simon Kinberg, Taika Waititi. Where are all their projects at? And this is what Kathleen responds. I've got to tread a bit carefully here. Jim Mangold and Bo Willimon wrote an incredible script, but it is definitely breaking the mold and it's on hold. Taika has turned in a script, and I think it's hilarious and great. It's not just my decision, especially when I've got a foot out the door. Donald Glover has turned in a script, and as you have read, Steve Soderbergh and Adam Driver turned in a script written by Scott Burns. It was just great. Anything's a possibility if somebody's willing to take a risk.
Did you didn't did you hear the quote though about Ryan Johnson?
That's the one that's coming up next.
Okay.
What about Ryan Johnson returning? You want to comment on these and then I'll get to Ryan Johnson?
No, you can just go ahead because
Okay.
the thing I hope you hit is Ryan Johnson's social media reply to her
Mhm.
comment, which I found very interesting. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, she goes, "What about Ryan?" Then asks, "What about Ryan Johnson returning after episode 8? Grows 1.3 billion globally. We expect him to return." She goes, "Once he made the Netflix deal and went off to start doing the Nice Out films, that has occupied a huge amount of time." That's the other thing that happens here. After Sean and I started talking about Star Wars, Stranger Things kicks in, and he was completely consumed for a while by that. That's Sean Levy, who's making Starfighter. He directed a lot of the episodes in this last season of Stranger Things. That's what happened with Ryan, she continues. And then I do believe he got spooked by the online negativity. I think Ryan made one of the best Star Wars movies. He's a brilliant filmmaker, and he got spooked. This is the rough part. When people come into this space, I have every filmmaker and actor say to me, quote, what is going to happen? And quote, they're a little scared. So that was her quote. Now let me find you the response to by Ryan Johnson because that's where it gets interesting. But go ahead and start talking about what your initial thoughts are to all this.
Well, I mean, yeah, my whole thing when I saw Ryan Johnson's reply, that made me go, "Oh, there's there. I mean, there's something dysfunctional happening. I mean,
Well, this is you want to
it's not all unicorns and oh, you're busy with Knives Out. You know, there that was kind of a cut. Um,
is Ryan. You want to hear Ryan's response, which was on Twitter. It was LOL, zero spook, sorry. So he's very much saying, nope, I was not spooked by it. No, there is some to be fairness to extent fairly. Ryan Johnson did sign that Knives Out contract with Netflix. He has been developed, he's literally developed, written, directed, and produced 3 movies
oh, honey,
since The Last Jedi. So if she just had left it at that, that would have been fine. But it's interesting that he took umbrage on the idea of being spooked by the online response to it. And because even this article from Coming Soon Response has a previous quote from him saying that he had a great time working together, and they said, "Let's keep doing it." And I said, "Great,
I
I will kick their DS around with Kathy.
I will give my 2 cents here, and again,
Go for it."
with all due respect to Kathleen Kennedy, because I've said last week, you know, that she was awesome. We said in previous, um, shows that she's awesome. But some of those comments, though, about how about the Mangold movie, that it was, different. What it was, it broke the mold, and so it's on hold. And this thing is, neat, but it's on. I don't have all the. It sounds like the person that's spooked is not each one of those directors. It's either her or somebody else. So I don't know. But so I mean, it seems like a little bit of projection there, with that comment to Ryan Johnson. And I still I agree with her that Ryan Johnson made a fantastic Star Wars movie. And but that comment made me go, oh, okay. So Dave looks like he has 2 cents to
Go
throw
ahead,
in.
Dave, and then I'll give you what Calvin added to this. But yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I don't know if we need more. Uh, it reeks of just someone being out of touch. You know, when you go to like I don't know, high school with somebody, and you get into a conversation with them 20 years later, and they act like you haven't changed in 20 years. And they're just like rattling off, whatever they think, whatever their perception of you was, and they're rattling that off as though that's just like you're static, you're the same. This is what this sounds like to me. It's like somebody just projecting this idea of, well, I haven't talked to you in 2 years, but uh, the reason I haven't talked to you in 2 years is because I guess you got spooked or something. It's just somebody talking out of their McClunky. Um, and like, I don't know, man. Don't do that. Just don't do that.
Yeah,
And
and
I think, look, go
well, I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Dave.
It even like just on it is very unprofessional. I mean, because it's like, so now you're as you know a huge name in the movie industry and as a producer, and you just told everybody that Rian Johnson gets spooked, and that's
Right, or that this can affect him, right? Like this online
yeah,
nastiness can affect him.
and
You're
that's
just giving the trolls like free license at that point to just double down and triple down, right?
well, and also
And
gives studios saying, well, maybe we don't want to get, sign him to
yeah,
this or
yeah, I mean,
whatever because, Kathleen Kennedy says he got spooked because people said that they got their butt hurt about The Last Jedi. Um, so yeah, it was just that. I mean, I,
it's a weird. Put it this way: nothing she says before when she discusses Ron Johnson is that surprising or that out of left field. Okay, people have been turning in scripts. Clearly, we know that there's stuff going on behind the scenes because none of these movies have come out. Let's remember, we're not even mentioning stuff like Rogue Squadron, or we're not mentioning anything like the new Jedi Order film. We're not mentioning anything about any of the other stuff that was supposed to be developed that got announced and went away and just faded into nothingness in the ether. So we're just talking about some of these projects that apparently are on hold. Now, it is understandable. Making a Star Wars movie costs a lot of money. Takes a lot of you got to line up a whole lot of ducks and a whole lot of rows in order to make this sucker happen. This isn't just George Lucas on a shoestring budget out in the middle of the North African desert making magic happen, or counting on his wife at the time to make magic happen. That said, the moment she starts making the point of saying, well, companies are risk averse because they're afraid about Wall Street, and the creatives are afraid of the online reaction and they're going to get spooked. Two things are going to happen. One, you're giving the people you don't want to give power by saying, yeah, you jerks, if you don't like this movie,
you
just
know,
raise enough of a stink and people will run away from this, which is what you don't want. You don't want to empower people who are going to be negative actors in the space to feel like they have that power. But then also all you're saying is there's no way to protect the creatives. And I'm sorry, Kathleen, that's your job.
well, the
You are
thing,
the producer. You're the person who has to be shielding Rian Johnson and Taika Waititi and James Mangold, making sure that they have what they need in order to make this sucker and drive it into
I don't,
the screens.
yeah, I'm sorry. I don't even think you can I don't think you can even cast too much blame on Disney because Disney
Mhm.
controls Marvel, and Marvel is putting out movies like, I mean, let's count the number of Marvel movies that have come out in the last 10 years versus the amount of Star Wars movies that have come out in the last 10 years, and we can get Disney, and so I wonder. I'm thinking also about comparing this to my beloved Nebraska Cornhuskers, whose football team has been in disarray for a while. And Matt Rule has recently said that when basically the football program was broken more than anybody realized, and things that should just be kind of already set for a Power Four conference school is not. And so he's had to spend like his first three, and so now he's like, I can finally start coaching. And so I'm wondering, it'll be interesting. Linwin Brennan and Dave Filoni, what are they going to see on their first day that they're handed the keys and the books? And again, not I'm not chucking Kathleen Kennedy under the bus, but they're just how things worked, how things functioned. Maybe they, I'm sure they probably already know. Linwin has been, running things for, ILM and everything like that. So it would just be interesting to see what systems need to be tweaked to make that whole system just work better. Because like I said, Marvel's pumping things out, and it costs as much money to make a Marvel movie as it does a Star Wars movie. They don't have a problem with it.
Fair though, let's also be kind and remember that the reaction to stuff from the Marvels to Eternals, two recent MCU movies directed by two extremely talented female directors, was not the same that Taika Waititi got for Thor Ragnarok. So you do get those moments where the online negative reaction, or even the critical reaction, can leave creatives out on an island all to themselves. Marvel's not prone. Kevin Feige will shepherd the MCU, but the reaction that some of those most recent movies have gotten has not been the nicest either. And so, which should be fair to that regard. But you're right, though, in terms of actually seeing to completion. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They get there's literally uh, ads right now on the college football final game and the NFL playoffs about the next upcoming Marvel MCU Disney Plus show. You know, so they know how to get how to keep their train rolling.
Yeah, yeah. I'll just say, like, I think that bottom line is she said too much.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
on that note, I think like I said, I think it's interesting that she had to talk about all this because it's the question that everybody has right now. Uh, one other thing I'll mention the Simon Kinberg thing. She did mention Simon Kinberg is working on something right now. See, again, there's all these projects and spin-off that they're out there, but at some point you have to start shepherding some of these babies towards the exit. So hopefully, Linwin and Dave Filoni will work towards that.
well, now that we're all fired up, let's get off Dave's
Dave,
lawn.
that's right, Dave.
All right, all right. I'll try to do this very quickly because we're already short on time, and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even know if we have time for this. But anyway, um, I was the other day I was on the web scrolling my feed.
Well, that's your
Something got
first. It's your first mistake. But anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
something got served right into my social media feed, and it was the Loveline guys. Okay, you remember these guys, right? You remember
Adam Carolla and Dr.
Dr.
Drew.
Drew.
All
Yes.
right. Well, he's
All right.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right.
Kids, back in the day, MTV, which used to be a channel that had music on it, had a late night romance and relationship show. Go, Dave.
It was called Loveline. But that was ported over from a successful talk show. They got their start as a radio show, and it was Adam Carolla, a comedian, and Dr. Drew, who had more of a background in medicine and psychiatry, I think. And so the two of these guys, yahoos, would just talk about any ridiculous topic that people could come up with, and a lot of the joke of the show was people coming up with bizarre scenarios that had no basis in reality just to get on the show. These dudes got served into my feed the other day. So apparently they've reconnected. I know that they both have leaned a little more conservative over the years, a little more conservative, to where now apparently they're producing content with one another again. And it's not Loveline. It was them going off on skateboarders who apparently are members of Antifa. And when I tell you I nearly fell out of my chair to think that the Loveline dudes, right, like, who are giving you advice on like dating your barista or like not getting into a fist fight with your friend or identifying a bump on one of your genitals. Like these people now are like taking the world so seriously that they see Antifa everywhere. I see Antifa. Oh, oh, and they're on skateboards now. And I just thinking to myself, why are they so serious? And why is everyone so serious? Why does and not only that, why if you're serious, why does everyone else around you have to be as serious as I am? And I think like that's the crux of where I got like really agitated and annoyed because I think about our show here and we do it for the joy. We basically we come on here, we talk about our honest reactions to things. Like I liked it, I didn't like it. But we're here for the joy. We love Star Wars. We like each other's company. We like talking to one another. We enjoy the interactions that we have with people that reach out to us, that listen to us. That's why we do these things. We do it for the joy. This is not one of those rage masturbation shows. That's not what we do.
Getting back to jizz,
So-
everybody.
So what is wrong with
That's a
people
Star
having
Wars
joy?
term. Sorry, keep going.
What is wrong with people having joy, right? I like Star Wars. I like the goofy stuff. The somehow Palpatine has returned. I like that. Let's be honest. Some of the less successful stuff is some of the most entertaining parts of this.
Well,
And I
Dave,
can sit here and I can disagree with you, gentlemen. And I can sit here and I can disagree with the decisions that Lucasfilm makes. But but I don't take it to this place of rage. And I think that's where we sort of lost the plot as a society, because whether it's through tariffs raising the cost of coffee, corporate consolidation, taking away our entertainment options and taking away streaming services from us and putting them all under one umbrella and forcing us to not have the options that we used to have. Manosphere telling people what to enjoy and more importantly, more often, what not to enjoy. I just think a growing number of people right now are more concerned that others are not having joy than trying to acquire some for themselves. And that's where I get really super agitated because I don't care what goes on in someone else's home. And you can if you're not hurting other people, you get thumbs up from me, right? Like live your life. I'm good. Do you if you like the raid shows, you want to listen to the raid shows, it doesn't hurt anybody, you can go ahead and you can do that. And I'm good. You and I we're good. I'll buy you a beer. But when you start to tell people what they can or cannot like, and when you start to actively try to pry joy away from people,
well,
you've lost the frickin' plot.
if I can jump in here real quick, it's very interesting because it seems like, I've thought about something on a tangent. It's like we always have to have somebody to hate. We always have to have an enemy. I find it funny that one of my former students, kid had a green mohawk that stood about 10 inches in the air, and he's fantastic. He was a fantastic kid, and the assistant principal hated him and his friends because they had mohawks. They were Antifa on skateboards. I mean, that's what started this. But it's like this kid was awesome. and he has his doctorate in music composition. He's a published and recorded composer. I've wanted to ask him so bad. Have you gone back to your high school and found that assistant principal and just thrown the middle finger in his face? It's because, yeah, you're right. There always has to be something to hate. So that was the first thing I came to. The other thing I wonder though, we live in a town where one of the mottos is do what you wanna.
Hmm.
And we see signs that say be nice or leave. I was at my gig last week, and there was a couple from New Jersey, and it was his first time in New Orleans. He was like, the people are just so wonderful, and it's like it's like as long as you are not an a-hole, you know, we'll we'll have fun with you. We want to know about you. We want to know if you're enjoying the city. We'll let you know where we think you should go to eat, or where the best this or that or other is. Not every place is like that, so I think we're very fortunate here. The other thing I was thinking about is that people's reaction to, like, getting mad about The Last Jedi, for example.
Hmm.
We're getting mad about, I still, I do think that there's something they go into those movies and they want to feel like they were when they were 10, and the minute that, and I'm sorry, but all art is political. It's always been political. You didn't catch it when you were 10 years old in Star Wars, but it was about terrorists and government. I mean, it was political.
It
So
was the Vietnam War.
you didn't miss it. You just missed it when you were 10 years old. And so when you're seeing on the news all this stuff, and you go to your Star Wars movie and it's political, I wonder how much of it is like just sort of like, God, it's just everywhere. There's no place to escape. You know what I mean? But it's like somebody should have been right alongside you saying, this is not going to be an escape, because if this is what ticks you off in real life, it's going to tick you off here. So I'm with you 100%, but I just wonder if that's why some people get so mad about that. Now, I will say, when we started this podcast, you're right, it was out of joy. It was just, we wanted to hang out. We wanted to have some sort of creative outlet. And I love listening to those. That's what the podcasts I listen to is,
Hmm.
you know, but I don't know. And yeah, like you said, it's like, hey, I don't like X, Y, or Z. If you like it, good on you. You
And
know.
the newest outrage, and Kate just
Oh,
texted this
He-Man.
to us. He-Man has pronouns, right?
Well, it's in his flipping name.
It's in his name. He-Man has always had pronouns. I'm sorry, right? Just, what are we even doing, man? Like, what are we doing? Why are we mad about everything?
Well, that is the thing. However, okay, so what was the word of the year from Oxford? What it was, rage bait. And I think a lot of this is, we are getting. There are many times where I'm on Threads or Blue Sky or something, and I see something that is just like, yeah, I can tell that they're trying to put a hook in me and trying to get me to yell at somebody online because you just made me mad. You know, so yeah,
And I think that's the big point, and that's why we start where Dave started. This is two people who had a career talking on TV, well, radio and then TV, and then online. And they need a meal ticket, they need a job. And what they have found is that the easiest way to forget a job in 2026, ladies and gentlemen, is to rage bait, is
this
to
would be
create
controversial.
controversy.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's to create chaos. It's to get on the stage and create fake arguments that, have no, binary answers that, it's either these are the good guys or these are the bad guys, or if you're on this side, you're evil, or if you're on this side, you're good. Because the sad part is, most people, most regular citizens, we live in a very complex, dynamic world. where we don't have the time to analyze and contextualize and come to terms with all the dynamics of everything going on. And at most, I mean, once you get up and get going with your life, you may have 30 minutes or an hour to figure out what's going on around you. So if somebody's yelling and screaming, this is what's happening, most of us don't have the time to vet. I was thinking this earlier today. I was sharing a picture with my brothers. Somebody took at a press conference, and the first response was, "Is this AI generated?" I mean, we are now in a world where even the things that we find and we see are not necessarily meant to be trustworthy. And when you can't even trust your lying eyes, we
Well,
got problems. But that's part of the problem. We have way too many people who make all their livelihood is made by rage baiting, and they need to keep that fire going, whether it's in Star Wars or elsewhere, because otherwise they have nothing else to contribute to society.
They don't right now. I mean, again, like if somebody stumbles onto this and they're a rage baiter, you don't have to do this. You can go find purpose in your life. You
well, I
can go
don't.
build something.
Again,
I mean,
I come back to it. I don't understand why if Dave posts on social media, I really like this movie. Why do I feel the need to come back and say you are wrong? That movie sucked. Just,
well, there's a
just
psychology there, right? Like
yeah, just
we should analyze this more as a society. We should talk about this more and try to figure out what it is that gets us just sort of like, I have to disagree with you. Like, do you? Like, do you? Um, why? Um, and I've been guilty of that where somebody's like, I like this thing, and I'll dive right in and I'll say, I really don't like that thing. And but the older I get, the more I realize when I'm doing it, and I think, well, no, that's let them like it. We say don't yuck someone's yum. And again, like that's not to say, oh, we can't have critical thought or oh, we can't discuss this stuff. It's like, well, no, but like if somebody is telling you, oh, I like this thing, and you have any consideration for that person at all, you're probably going to say, well, that's great that you like that thing. That's how I treat my kids. That's how I treat my wife. It's like, oh, you like that? Cool. I love that you like that thing. I'm going to try to share in that with you a little bit, even if it's not my particular thing.
one of
I'm
the
going to try to find some common ground with you on this thing.
one of the best things I ever heard. We went and saw Gloria Steinem speak in New Orleans. About 2017 or something like that. And she said you cannot have true empathy unless all five senses are in the room. And that's the problem with social media. It's this. Um, if I'm sitting next to you in a bar, and I can see your reaction, you know I can hear your tone of voice. I can hear, like I said, all five senses are in the room. Then that's going to gauge how it's like, okay, I'm not going to get into it with him right now.
Most people will tone things down like real
Right.
quick.
Right. And so yeah, but you're right. I mean, like Fredo said, anger and controversy sells. You know, being a being positive doesn't sell, but it's like, I mean,
But I think the sad part is being positive does sell because you see it from everybody from Mr. Rogers to Reading Rainbow to Miss Rachel. Uh, Positivity can sell and can be accepted and can be embraced. It's just it requires a lot of effort, and the quick and easy are the path towards the dark side. And a lot of people just don't have the time, the energy, the willpower to just actually put in the grunt work. It's a lot easier just to get online and rage bait somebody because you know what? That's what you want to do. And the sad part is those are empty calories. All that anger, all that rage, all that everything that you're feeling, at the end of the day, they stoke the flames, they walk away, but nothing is Nothing good comes out of it at the end.
Well, and not to, I mean, we don't have to keep belaboring things, but like there is absolutely no room for nuance anymore either.
Mm.
Yeah, there's
Um,
that too.
you know, that's part of it as well.
Mm.
You either have
Ru-
to be all in or all out. It's like, and that's a problem as well.
Are we going to rapid fire some Stranger Things now?
Yeah, listen,
Okay.
I don't think there's a whole. I just want to talk. The thing, reason I brought it up,
Right.
like we watched the last season of Stranger Things. Brittany and I enjoyed it. It's time for that to be done.
Mm.
It was, but the things that we're talking about rage bait, the things that were driving us crazy are. I was just wondering, are we? We're talking about just the kind of social and historical literacy. It's like the amount of people who are complaining about it because it was set in the 80s and they just didn't it's like you see all this stuff. It's like, seriously, they just let kids, ride their bikes around, and it's like it just it's like it's not like it was that long. I guess I grew up in the 80s and I had a reasonable idea of what life was like in the 50s and 60s when my dad and mom grew up. It's like, because I mean the shows talk to me and they talk to me about that sort of thing. Um, but I wonder if we're at a point where we can't do these period things anymore because it's like, the characters don't have a cell phone in their pocket. That's unreasonable, Or it's like Dave and I were talking in my living room. It's like, the like I said, you get on your bikes and you go. We had an adventure every Saturday. Now with, if you want to call helicopter parents, or the ability of a parent to text you at any minute of the day, say, where are you, what are you doing, I don't know, are these how relatable are these stories? And now we're talking about Stranger Things, that is about demigorgons and everything. But anyway, Fredo, you've been trying to jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was going to say what I find interesting, and maybe Dave, this is something Dave will maybe agree with or maybe not. Um, I found the last season. I think the problem Stranger Things has. By the way, the first season of Stranger Things is one of the best single TV seasons ever. It hits all the notes, everything from the nostalgia to the characters to the journey. It's note perfect. I put it up there with like True Detective season one, like Game of Thrones, The Wire season one or two, one if you want to go that way. It's Sopranos. It's at that level because it hits all the notes. I think the problem Stranger Things has is the way that story was meant to go was supposed to stay small, intimate, focused on the characters. And as they grew in popularity, the show got bigger and bigger and bigger, much the same way as Game of Thrones. As the show got bigger, the cast got bigger, the effects got bigger, the impact got bigger. And at some point, it almost got out of hand for them from the creators, the Duffer Brothers, and they had to bring it all back around. And when season four ends with literally the upside down ripping into reality, tearing the town into sections, darkness emerging from whatever from underneath the ground, and season five starts off, oh, we just covered it up and everything's back to normal. It's back to being the 80s. It creates a little bit of a dissonance because you're like, okay, this is either the end of the world or it isn't, kids. This is either still the tiny small story with these little kids going on adventures, or this is literally now the Lord of the Rings and Sauron's coming over the hill now with his army of orcs. I make that comment because me and the GLaDOS went to see Return of the King on theaters last weekend. I guess my big point to your point, Aaron, is yeah, it's very difficult for society, for kids today, or maybe young audiences today, to recognize that that's the way that is. But I also think, in part, it used to feel like, and maybe it's just me, it's something I've started realizing. Things used to feel like they were further out. Like when we were living in the 80s, somebody mentioned the 1950s. That felt like a lifetime ago. But now, if somebody tells you the 1980s right now in the 2020s, we're old enough to mention, that's not that far away. Even if for young people, it's like that's a lifetime ago. So I don't know if maybe technology, the rise of the internet, everything, or maybe there's a nostalgia bit of everything has just made it so that it doesn't feel that far away where people can go, well, that doesn't seem to make sense. All these kids running around, no parent, no chaperone, no supervision. It's like, yeah, that was the way it was back then, kids, because it was a different world. Anyway, go ahead, Dave.
I agree with your point about the stakes growing as the series went along, and it reminds me of, I mean, so many different things you can talk about with that. Um, Ghostbusters, I feel like fell into that. Every successive movie felt like, oh, we got to make it bigger somehow, and it sort of collapses under the weight of expectations. Eventually, you're like, well, this was an intimate, small thing that was part of the appeal. I feel like that way about The Mandalorian right now. We're, we'll see with the movie, we'll see where the character goes in the future. But season one for me was most enjoyable season. Maybe season two, flirted. The highs were higher, but by the time season three rolled around, it was like, oh, he's involved in political skirmishes and this, saving a planet and all that. Like, well, does this story work quite so well in that way? And so Stranger Things kind of fell prey to some of that for me as well. Where I would argue with Aaron slightly is that I would argue that these sorts of period pieces are really important now in an age of misinformation, when people will try to tell you that the world was different than what it truly was back then. I think you need to tell these sorts of stories to sort of counterbalance some of that. So that people are like, well, people really didn't, they didn't have phones, they were biking around, yeah, that those were real things like that. And this is where I really appreciate the Duffer Brothers and the way that they put this series together, is that they did pay attention to that stuff and mostly get it really, really accurate. When people ask you, or people get online, and they, oh well, it wasn't really like that, was it? It's like, yes, it's an easy response. Like, we're showing you to help you get there, because like if you weren't there, you wouldn't know. And then people can lie to you about, how Reaganomics worked so brilliantly, or, the we're making America great again, like it was during the Great Depression. I mean, there's a disconnect in what people are trying to sell you nowadays. And so I think it's that much more important that we try to portray things as close to as accurately as they might have been. And I appreciate that a great deal. And even if it's annoying,
But,
when a 20-year-old is like, oh, I don't get it.
my
It's like,
my initial point though is like, why is there such a disconnect with, like, it, like I said, they can't comprehend. It's like the last scene when the kids were on the they're on the roof of the radio station,
right.
and like some of my wife's students were like, why is this such a big deal? It's like, it's
For them to
because
say goodbye,
it's
yeah.
because when you graduated high school, that was it. There's like one or two people you may stay in contact with. When you graduate college, maybe one or two. Now that is a good thing about social media, is that now I am still in contact with, or I've gotten back into contact with people that I went to high school and college with, and have developed some kind of, new and neat relationships with those people.
Yeah, when I went away to college, I could count on one hand the number of people that I was
Right.
able to stay in contact with at that point from high school. Like, that was how it was, right? There was no social media. Like, what were you going to do? Like, write letters to everybody, call everybody? Like, that wasn't really done.
Now let me ask you, let's get into the controversy here. Was all of Stranger Things just a D&D campaign?
No,
No,
no.
I don't think so, and not because it would be like because there was a point where part of me was thinking this is gonna go the uh
Yeah.
was it Dallas with the whole season
It was
was a
all a
dream.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which again, kids, go back and ask your parents or your grandparents about the experience when TV writers could just spend a whole season and then telling you one thing and then shift it over by saying, nope, it wasn't like that. See
It
how
was a
happy they were.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah, and see how happy they were about all that dynamic.
Somehow Palpatine
No,
returned.
and again, it can't be just because then there's no stakes to it. And again, this is why I go back to the problem that they ran into is the show got bigger than they meant it to be. Because a smaller show, a show that's more
Like,
leaning, the finale leans into all the emotional beats. It is about the characters. It is not about, you know, closing this up perfectly because it can't. It's grown beyond them. So they choose to settle on the emotional payoffs, which it hits. If you like these characters, you love seeing where they end up. So based on that, I don't necessarily think this could be just, oh, this was a D&D campaign and now nothing greater like that ever happened. Because again, that demeans and diminishes the entire journey all these characters went through.
you know, for I find that I find it really interesting that they did end that way because it is your points are well taken, but it is a logical argument that it's like, well, maybe it could have been. But I will say this: it's like my thing, and Star Wars is kind of to blame, kids. Not everything needs a sequel. Not everything needs to be a trilogy. I wonder would sometimes make it one and done, and if everybody loved it, then create something new that is just as awesome. You know, instead of trying to keep like the Kevin Smith line going back to the well. You know, it's it like I said, maybe not everything needs to because Stranger Things. I was ready. It's like okay, I enjoyed the season, but yeah, it's like when they did the whole Russia thing, that was kind of like it was kind of Fonzie jumping the shark a little bit. It was it was weird. Um,
We got
so
two seasons of that.
yeah, so I think that and of course they weren't planning on it like you said. But if somebody's going to pay you to write more, I guess you do that. But you know, some bands, man, they never got anything better than their first album.
And they repeated.
They
They
put out a
couldn't.
lot of music, but they never got that. They never made anything as good as their first album.
This past Sunday, you had the premiere episode of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is a spin-off of Game of Thrones. It's actually based on a series of novellas that George R. R. Martin wrote. And what's wonderful about this series that it's only 6 episodes is very small stories about two characters caught up in a world and they're just going about it. And get adventures, they're getting into mischief, they're getting into stuff. None of the big political dynamics that has fashioned both the original Game of Thrones or its sequel spin-off show, House of the Dragon. And sometimes you tend to get too caught up on what you think people want. Something like that can appeal to people a lot more because you don't need to do the homework. You don't need to know all the backstory. All you need to know is these are the characters as they're presented to me, and I can go along for a ride. And those smaller stake stories, which are important for the characters, the difference is it doesn't have to be big scale story for it to mean something to the characters. It could be a small scale story can be just a meaningful thing of something like Stand By Me, where the stakes on that story are small, or this is not the end of the world happening, but it is one a beautifully told story about growing up. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, producers, studios, networks, they see something succeeding and they go, "We're going to throw you all the money, and you're going to make it bigger, and it's going to be an even bigger hit." Instead of recognizing, no, this story needs to stay at this level in order to keep hitting the strides that it's hitting. And Unfortunately, I mean, it's understood. Look, the hilarious part about it's that it's Netflix, which is infamous for cutting off shows after seasons 2 and 3. Like the number of shows
Mhm.
that didn't get to tell their endings are many. But yet, Stranger Things hits at the right time in 2016, 2015, 2016, and everybody and their mama goes gaga over it. And next thing you know, it is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and Netflix is pouring all the resources into it. So anyway, just thinking when you start thinking about stories and how you're going to tell, these kind of stories, sometimes less is more.
I want to be complimentary for a moment
Mhm. Yeah, go for it.
for the show in general because again, like why did it blow up in the way that it did? Because it was creating a tone that we really hadn't seen really anywhere else. I mean, like you talk about those horror elements,
Yeah.
but done in a way that's not as threatening. Um, and it's sort of centered around a group of children and they're navigating all of this, but not in a way that's unapproachable or too scary. Um, my kids have all watched this show and been able to handle it without getting spooked by it. They're a little bit older now, but like it's it was a really sort of unique tone. This was not a thing that we had really seen anywhere else before, and I think like that was what made it so special and why everyone gravitated towards it. It was like, whoa, this is really cool. And then you add the setting on top of that, and I think that it just sort of like cemented that for a lot of people, and it made it, it added a sense of nostalgia for those of us that like went through that time period, or at least had heard a lot about it. So, I mean, like it was a fabulous show. Uh, I'd love to shout out season 4, um, because I thought that they did just a masterful job of tying a lot of different strings together in an interesting way that you weren't really sure that that's how things were going to unfold, but then you sort of, as it unfolds, you're like, that makes perfect sense, man. And as it gets revealed to the characters, it's getting revealed to the audience at the same time. And I think like that is such a that is such a tough thing to pull off, and they really did. Um, and then this season, again, trying to land the plane, the £1 million plane overstuffed with cargo, and trying to keep it from crashing off the runway. I think they landed it. They did. Like it wasn't a catastrophe. It wasn't the sort of thing that I was like angry about. Um, my daughter, she had expectations and feelings, and like, why didn't these two characters I shipped together? Why didn't they get together? Like things like that. And we can talk about all of that kind of thing forever. But I think like ultimately they had to try to maintain the spirit of what the show was originally. And it wasn't a scary, crazy, like unapproachable thing. And so like it would have felt almost inappropriate in a way to like, I don't know, kill off half the cast or something.
That's a very interesting thing that you just said about your kids saying, you know, I had this expectation and it didn't happen. Why not? It's kind of like me, what I said about Maul. It's like, I
Mhm.
want to see this and that and the other. And it's like, okay, you know, the people making these shows and making a movie, they're not making it based on the survey they send you of what are the things that you want to see. They're telling a story, and if your expectations aren't in there, is because, you know, don't get mad about it. It goes back to your theme about your rant. Don't get mad about it. It's just, this is the story. Not everything has to be, just because you see a little twinkle in somebody's eye, or just because, you know, you this or that made you think about something else. It's like, that doesn't mean that that's where the story's going. You know, so I think that's the lesson. Now, I do want to ask. I want to go back to that D&D game theory, thing. Do you think that kind of do you think that final scene needed to? Do you think it would have been better if they didn't have it in there?
I think
If
they needed to have it. I think they needed that scene for two reasons. And again, I go back to they were going for the emotional payoff, the
yeah, no, I
emotional
get that,
closing of the
but
story. So because of that, they needed to have it. But in terms of overall, the idea of wrapping their story, bring it all together into one, I just don't think, if you put it this way, if the show had ended with the kids at their graduation, or or the more adult kids at the rooftop, and then we cut to black and it ends like that, it would have felt not necessarily incomplete, but it wouldn't have felt appropriate. I love the idea that the story doesn't end in a matter of speaking. The torch gets handed out to the next generation. Just as we with Star Wars have handed the torch to the prequel trilogy kids, and they've grown up, and now they're handing it off to the sequel trilogy kids, and they'll hand it off to other kids that'll come along. That is the beauty of these stories, that they don't end. Our part in the story ends, the story goes on, and it changes and it shifts according to those kids and who they are. And that perhaps is probably the most honest and beautiful thing that the show could have ended on as a note, because we tend to hold on to these things and saying, "This is mine. Only we get to protect it. Only we know its true value. Only it's ours. It's our precious." Instead of recognizing, no, at some point this belongs to everybody, and we need to let the ones that come after us take it and go with it.
People's lives continue on past whatever story you tell. I mean, if I were to tell the story of Dave, Fredo, and Aaron, and I said, there was the story of this podcast they developed, and then they got into adventures, and then eventually they got through it, and it was okay. Things were okay. And here at the end, they went on and they lived their lives. That's authentic. That's life. People move in opposite directions. They don't always stay together. Things aren't always like in a little tidy bow. And then they all got married. It's life's bigger than that. And you lose track of people. People go their different directions. And all of that feels very authentic to me. Kind of grounds things, right? We've had this fantastic story with monsters and space creatures and this guy that could like bend things with his mind and everything else. And it's like now we're talking about real human things. And it feels like that sort of tethers us. It's not like again, the problem with the story is it gets too big and too fantastic and too like what is going on? And the way for them to sort of like draw back from that is to ground everything. And the ending was very grounded, and I appreciated that. Don't get me wrong, I love a sort of mystery box ending when it's appropriate. And I can, name off dozens of examples. But I think here I liked what they did. I liked the very human moments that we saw at the end.
And I wanted to mention real quick something you brought up there, which is a good point. How often does a horror project hears the zeitgeist and becomes the talking point? Horror, I mean, I love horror movies. I love horror stuff. It doesn't. It's still very much a niche, much the same way as science fiction or fantasy. Most genre stuff does not jump out from its niche corner to become something that everybody wants to talk about, everybody's discussing, everybody's aware of. This did, and that's something to be commended because this doesn't normally happen.
well, with that, we've yammered on for a long time tonight, so I think it's getting past everybody's bedtime. But let us know what you thought about the Stranger Things finale and the show as a whole, and any of the other topics we hit tonight. And make sure that you're staying warm and make sure that you're getting your sleep and everything in for the parades that are coming New Orleans. So 'tis carnival time. So until next week, we'll say who dat.
Who dat?
Yeah.
Everybody have a fantastic week.
McConkey.